All during the campaign and ever since the election, Trump has denounced the Iran nuclear deal and said that it was one of the worst bargains the U.S. ever made. Now, a big part of the damage that deal has done because of Obama is irreparable, because tens of billions of dollars have been transferred from the U.S., Iranian assets frozen there, to the Iranian government, and that has been used to finance Hezbollah and Hamas and the Syrian war, Yemen, and terrorism all over the world. That's just Obama's legacy, his parting gift to us all. But part of it, which relates to Iran's ongoing refraining from developing nuclear weapons, is really up for grabs. And Trump says that three things are needed. Number one, Iran has to stop developing ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Secondly, the agreement has to have no end date. There can't be any point at which Iran is authorized to develop nuclear weapons, and that would have been about 7 years or 8 years hence from now. And finally, that Iran has to stop financing terrorist activities all over the world, and indeed sending its troops to fight alongside the insurgents. Now, the Europeans are less likely to go along with this than Trump is. That was the point of Macron's visit and of Merkel's forthcoming visit. But it doesn't really matter what they say, because the U.S. not only occupies a huge role in Iran's sanctions, it also will impose secondary sanctions, which means if any other country's companies violate the American sanctions by engaging in their own activities with Iran, we can cut them off from the international banking system, which is death for companies. So we have a very strong hand to play. The first play will be in early May, when Trump is required to certify that Iran is in compliance, and he's indicated he's probably going to refuse to do so. That will let the sanctions come back on Iran's oil industry. All oil purchases in Iran have to go through the central bank, and the sanctions would be on the central bank, and nobody could buy Iranian oil, which wipes out a huge portion of their economy. Then in early July, the second deadline comes, when all of the other sanctions come into play on every single industry that Iran has, every single source of export earnings. And we know, and there's a great deal besides oil, and we know that that was crippling to Iran, and that's what brought them to the bargaining table in the first place. So I hope that Trump doesn't back down. I hope that Trump stands firm. And with Bolton and Pompeo advising him in his own native instincts, I think he's going to be very firm. But let's remember as we go through this process a very important thing. The deal was sold to the American people by fraud. There was a whole effort organized in the White House and outside to feed the media false information and misleading opinions, and advocates of the treaty who in fact were paid to advocate the treaty. And it was as a result of that effort, coordinated from the White House, that public opinion allowed this deal to be approved. We can anticipate the same kind of effort, the same kind of gray hairs telling us that, I'm sorry, I have gray hair, but gray hairs telling us that we can't let this agreement lapse, that it's be a disaster and Iran will have a nuclear bomb tomorrow. And we can't listen to them now any more than we should have listened to them then. Today's Lunch Alert is sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Recently, China announced that as a result of the huge U.S. debt and deficit, it's curtailing its purchases of U.S. bonds and therefore curtailing the lending of money to us. And Japan already has big problems of its own and needs to dump every penny they can into funding their own debt. So when you hear that the United States now owes $25 trillion in debt, more than every other part of our history combined, more than any other nation in the world, more than all other nations in the world combined, we have to wonder if they're going to continue to lend us money. The bottom line is that all of the major sources of revenue or of lending for our government have dried up. We've stopped quantitative easing because we can't afford to do more of it, and Russia and China and Japan are curtailing their purchases of our bonds. The stock market has only had 3 occasions where it has sky-high valuations, higher than they are now. 1929, 2000, and 2008. And they are respectively the starts of the Great Depression, the dot-com bubble, and the Great Recession. So it might be safer to put your money into gold. That's why since the first of the year, gold has gone up, even as the Dow has gone down. So call the Patriot Gold Group at the number on the screen, or get in touch with them via internet at patriotgoldgroup.com. Thanks for watching.